Thousands of travelers are getting stranded at airports right now, not because they ignored the rules, but because they trusted rules that no longer work. What used to be enough in 2025 can quietly fail you in 2026. Airports are changing. Airlines are changing. And more importantly, the systems behind them are changing even faster. The human judgment travelers used to rely on is being replaced by automated processes that do not explain, do not bend, and do not care how long you saved for your trip or how close you are to departure. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 costly mistakes that are catching ordinary passengers off guard. Mistakes that are leading to denied boarding, unexpected fees, missed connections, and trips unraveling before people even reach the runway. And you need to stay with me because some of these mistakes look harmless until the damage is already done. This is not just about packing better or arriving earlier. It is about understanding how air travel works now, before outdated habits cost you money, time, and the trip you thought was already secure. Let's start with the first mistake. Mistake number 7. Arriving too late for the new reality. For years, travelers were told the same thing. Arrive 2 hours early. Get through security, and you should be fine. That advice used to feel reliable. It used to feel safe. But for many airports in 2026, it simply is not enough anymore. What changed is not just the crowd. It is the system behind the crowd. Staffing shortages, lane disruptions, and heavier pressure on airport security are creating delays that can stretch far beyond what travelers expect. In some places, wait times are becoming severe enough to throw off an entire trip before the boarding process even begins. And this is where many people get caught. They are not reckless. They are not unprepared. They are simply using old timing for a new airport reality. Even travelers with TSA pre-check are not always protected. When security lines become overwhelmed, some airports can slow, merge, or redirect those lanes in ways passengers do not expect, so the shortcut people paid for may not protect them the way it once did. That is why the safer window now is wider than most people want to hear. For major airports, 3 hours for domestic flights and 4 for international flights may be the only margin that truly gives you room to breathe. Because in 2026, missing a flight does not always begin at the gate. Sometimes it begins the moment you trust advice that no longer matches the airport in front of you. Mistake number 6. Trusting old carry-on habits. A lot of travelers are still packing the way they did a year or 2 ago. If the bag fit before, they assume it will fit again. If a strap sticks out a little, if a pocket bulges slightly, if the suitcase is only barely over the line, they expect a gate agent to make a judgment call and let it pass. That is exactly where the mistake happens. More airlines are now using automated sizing systems at the gate, and these systems do not behave like people. They do not care that your bag worked on your last trip. They do not care that it only fails by a little. They measure what is in front of them, and if any part of the bag crosses the limit, the result can be immediate. For travelers, that can mean an unexpected fee, a stressful delay, and a humiliating moment right at the gate when there is no time left to fix the problem calmly. That is why packing for 2026 means packing for the machine, not for the benefit of the doubt. Straps need to be tucked in. Outer pockets need to be flat. The shape of the bag matters just as much as the listed size. And if your carry-on only barely fits when you test it at home, that is already a warning sign. Because at the airport now, close enough is becoming a dangerous assumption. And many travelers are not getting caught because they broke the rules. They are getting caught because they trusted the old flexibility of a system that is disappearing. Mistake number 5. Booking connections that no longer work. There was a time when a 90-minute connection in a major European airport felt reasonable. Not ideal, maybe, but manageable. Travelers booked it, trusted it, and moved on. That confidence is becoming much harder to justify. For many non-EU passengers, newer entry procedures now involve biometric registration, including facial scans and fingerprints. On paper, that may sound like a smoother, more modern process, but in reality, it is adding pressure to airports that are already handling enormous passenger volume. And that is where the danger begins. What used to be a quick stop at passport control can now take far longer than travelers expect, especially in large connection hubs like Paris-Frankfurt or Amsterdam. The problem is not just the technology itself. It is the time it adds when thousands of people are passing through the same system at once. So travelers keep booking connections based on the old math, while the airport is operating on new delays. That is why a connection that once looked perfectly safe can now become the reason an entire trip falls apart. If your layover is too short, you may not miss your flight because you were careless. You may miss it because the connection was never truly realistic under the new conditions. Right now, anything under 3 hours in a major European hub can carry real risk. And for many travelers, the smarter move is either a longer layover or a route through a smaller airport with less pressure. Because one of the most expensive mistakes in travel is not the flight you book badly. It is the flight you book using yesterday's assumptions for today's airport reality. Mistake number 4. Gambling on the gate check offer. A lot of travelers still stand near the gate with the same quiet hope. If the flight is full enough, the airline will offer to check their carry-on for free. For years, that felt like a clever little trick. Wait long enough, let the cabin fill up, and maybe you save yourself the trouble. But that habit is becoming far riskier than most people realize. Behind the desk, airlines are using more real-time systems to manage weight and balance. And once those limits are reached, gate agents may have far less flexibility than they used to. What feels like a casual decision at the counter may now be controlled by a system that does not allow much improvisation. That is where the gamble can turn ugly. If your bag cannot go in the cabin and the system will not allow it into the hold, you are no longer dealing with a small inconvenience. You are dealing with a problem that can affect whether you board at all. What many travelers think of as a harmless waiting game can suddenly become the reason their trip starts collapsing right at the gate. The safer move is not to rely on a last-minute offer. It is to protect your position earlier. Get an earlier boarding group when possible. Board before overhead space becomes tighter and before those cargo decisions become more rigid. Because in 2026, waiting around for the airline to solve the problem for you is no longer a strategy. Sometimes it is the mistake that creates the problem in the first place. Mistake number 3. Relying only on digital ID. Digital ID feels convenient. That is why so many travelers have started trusting it too much. A license on your phone, a backup in your digital wallet, everything stored in one place. It feels modern, simple, and efficient. And when everything is working, it can be. But airports in 2026 are becoming more dependent on automated systems, and that creates a different kind of risk. Because when those systems fail, convenience disappears instantly. Localized network outages, scanner failures, and system disruptions are becoming serious weak points in highly automated travel environments. And when that happens, the system does not always fall back gracefully. Sometimes it simply rejects what it cannot verify in that moment. No flexibility, no patience, no exception just because your flight is coming up fast. That is why relying on a digital ID alone is becoming a dangerous habit. If your only valid identification is trapped behind a technical issue, then your travel day can unravel much faster than you think. What looked like a smart modern shortcut becomes a fragile dependency the moment the technology stops cooperating. The safer habit is simple: carry both. Keep your physical passport or license with you, and treat the digital version as a backup, not your foundation. Because in modern air travel, the system does not care how prepared you felt. It only cares what it can process when the moment comes. Mistake number 2. Assuming the app means you're fully checked in. One of the easiest airport mistakes to make in 2026 is believing that if your trip appears in the airline app, everything is finished. For many travelers, that assumption feels natural. The reservation is there. The flight looks active. The app seems normal. So they head straight to security, believing the hard part is already done. But sometimes it is not. More airlines are quietly requiring some passengers, especially those on basic economy fares, to complete check-in in person before a boarding pass is fully cleared. Often, this is tied to baggage verification or fare restrictions. And if the traveler misses that message inside the app, the problem may not reveal itself until the airport scanner rejects them. That is when a small misunderstanding becomes a serious delay. Now they have to turn around, find an agent, stand in another line, and hope there is still enough time to recover. In some cases, the delay is followed by an added fee, making the mistake even more painful. What makes this trap so effective is how easy it is to overlook. The warning may appear as a small banner or a simple instruction telling you to see an agent. Many travelers skim past it because they assume the app would not show the flight if something were still unfinished. But that assumption can be costly. So the smarter habit is this: during check-in, read every message carefully. If the airline tells you to see an agent, do that first before security, before the gate, before anything else. Because in 2026, the app may tell you your trip exists. That does not always mean the system has cleared you to fly. Mistake number 1. Thinking a flight delay protects your seat. A delayed flight feels like extra time. That is the assumption many travelers make. If the plane is leaving hours later than scheduled, it seems reasonable to slow down, leave home later, and trust that the delay has bought you breathing room. But that belief can cost you your seat. What many passengers do not realize is that airline systems do not always adjust the way people do. In some cases, overbooking and check-in algorithms continue tracking the original cutoff time, not the delayed one. So even if the aircraft is not leaving for hours, your reservation may still be at risk if the system decides you were not confirmed in time. That is what makes this mistake so dangerous. The delay creates a false sense of safety. A traveler sees the new departure time, relaxes, arrives later than usual, and discovers the seat is already gone. Not because the flight left without them, but because the system reassigned the booking before reality caught up. The safer move is to protect yourself early. Check in the moment the airline allows it, usually 24 hours before departure. And once you arrive at the airport, scan your boarding pass at an approved checkpoint or reader as soon as you can. That simple action helps show the system that you are present and still claiming your place. Because in 2026, a delay does not always mean protection. Sometimes it only means the system has more time to replace you before you get there. So those are the 7 mistakes that are catching travelers off guard right now. And what makes them so dangerous is not that they look reckless. Most of them look normal. Reasonable, even. Arriving 2 hours early. Trusting the airline app. Packing the same carry-on you have used for years. Assuming a delay gives you more time. These are the kinds of choices ordinary travelers make every day, and that is exactly why so many people are being blindsided. Because the real problem is this: the airport system has changed faster than passenger habits have. What used to work is no longer guaranteed to work now. Human flexibility is shrinking. Automation is expanding. And once a machine makes the decision, there is often no conversation left to have. That is why the traveler who stays informed now has a real advantage over the traveler who simply assumes the old rules still apply. If there is one takeaway from this video, it is this: do not travel on autopilot. Check more carefully. Arrive earlier. Read every message. And never assume the system will give you grace just because it used to. Because in 2026, the people who avoid airport chaos are not always the most experienced travelers. They are the ones who understand that the rules may look familiar, but the game underneath them has changed.